third quarter GDP number are still likely to show a pickup from the second quarter. Remember, second quarter, we had the big lockdowns in parts of China. And so from that low base in the second quarter, certainly acceleration. The problem is we're nowhere close to the 5.5 target on average for this year. And so maybe here is therefore some caution because if we had published the third quarter numbers, we would have really kind of highlighted the fact that we're away from that target. But fundamentally, the economy probably has picked up a bit of steam, but really it's still tough going. The real estate market remains a major drag. And of course, virus control measures still a huge drag on consumer spending as well.
A lot of analysis over the latest moves in the United States on the Chinese semiconductor industry. There's a lot of opinion that this is probably going to be the most damaging piece of trade legislation that we've ever seen from the United States in terms of what it will do to the Chinese high-tech sector. Do you agree with that view? And if so, how long will it take before we begin to see serious fallout?
Certainly a major step up, because remember, previous measures were more specifically aimed at certain companies, for example. Now we have a much broader set of restrictions, and high-end semiconductors remain critical for any economy across the world. And so by having these broader restrictions brought into play, that certainly is going to provide a headache in Beijing about how to source critical components. What's striking, I think, also here is that we haven't seen or heard a response yet out of China. But remember that we are in the midst of a party Congress, and be very surprised if there's not some sort of a stronger reaction coming out of Beijing, because it is such a stringent measure that's coming out of the U.S. Even if the implementation might take another year or so, certainly I would brace for some response from Beijing here.
Fred, to what extent is the weakness we're seeing in some of the new export orders, conditions on the ground in China, just a reflection of the global economy, which we know is now slowing, and how much of it really is just down to diversification, where a lot of businesses do not want to be located in China now?
It's all about the cycle, really. We see new export orders across the region plunge. If you go to some of the other Asian economies, new export orders have arguably declined by even more, partly because of the drag on electronics. The electronics indicators, remember, that's the leading edge of the global industrial cycle, have really broken lower sharply. Consumer electronics, industrial electronics, all of that is dragging lower. And with consumers pulling back in Europe and the US, it's not a surprise that even shipments out of China are cooling. So at this part, it's really a reflection of the cycle, the global cycle, teetering on the brink of a recession rather than supply chain diversification. That's really a slow burning issue that will play itself out over the coming years.
Fred, the Chinese leadership team often noted for their longer term views, but what we've heard from this party Congress has been a fairly strong focus on Taiwan and sovereignty. Is that a negative as we consider how the West and other global business managers might be perceiving the risk of doing business in China?
Well, I think certainly the risks have gone up around it, not just for economies immediately situated around the Taiwanese Strait, but really for the global economy, because a lot of trade is being sourced from mainland China, from Taiwan. It's critical for global supply chains. So any ratcheting up of the geopolitical temperature here is a challenge. I wouldn't necessarily say that the language has dramatically changed. China has been actually very consistent in its message. But of course, any mentioning in this environment raises attention. And I think everybody has been put on notice that the patience is not infinite on all sides. And so this issue will remain with us for the foreseeable future.